With the calendar turning to 2026, it's time to rank my favorite movies of 2025. Let's talk about them. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome back into JC's Movies, where you can see all kind of movie and TV show content with me, JC, especially horror, comedy, and superhero. We're talking those a lot. So if those are up your alley, be sure you hit that subscribe button. Come talk some TV and movies with us here on JC's Movies. And while you're in here watching this one, you can help us out as well by hitting that thumbs up button. That'll help us out with that crazy algorithm, help that find more movie fans like you and me. And with that being said, we're talking some movies in this one because it's time to rank my top 5 films of 2025. I'm going to show you some honorable mentions there. I'll give you what just missed the cut there at 6 through 10. And then, of course, we'll get into my top 5 movies of the year. But this isn't, necessarily me saying these are the best films of the year. There's a ton of movies that I wanted to see that I haven't gotten a chance to see yet that I'm hopefully going to see at some point. So I'm sure there's plenty that didn't make my list that are on your list. So if you want to share your list in the comments as well, I'd love to see some movies that you enjoyed this year also. So with that out of the way, let's get into my top movies of 2025. All right, I'm going to show you some that just missed the cut here. This technically, I guess, would be, 10 through 6, starting at 10 here with Final Destination Bloodlines. Enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. I'm a stickler for like the CGI blood, so some of the CGI was pretty spotty, I guess, to be kind, at points, especially towards the end there, the train with the logs and all of that at the end, spoiler alert. But other than that, I liked the way that they went with this. I thought the story, the way that they kind of unfolded this a little bit differently, to where instead of just being like a group that suffered something, it's an entire family tree and then people that were close to them, and it's been happening throughout years, and all of that I thought was a good angle. And a lot of the setups were really good, and they knew what they had with the franchise and could kind of toy with the fans a little bit because they knew what they expected, and they did a good job of that as well. So I think Final Destination Bloodlines was a good return for the franchise, and hopefully we get some more here. And then at number 9 for me, just getting into the top 10, it's Eddington, Ari Aster's movie. And I was had mixed feelings about how to feel going into this one, because with Hereditary and Midsommar, I was like, Ari Aster's going to be my guy. He's going to be one of my favorite directors ever. And then Beau's Afraid comes out, and I didn't hate it. It was fine, I guess is the best way I could put it, but it just kind of tampered my expectations going into Eddington. But I will say, although Eddington is a lot different than, any of his 3 previous movies, I think, and it's going to make you feel some type of way when you watch it, because he did do a great job of somehow, when you watch this, you're just instantly transported back to 2020. You have all those feelings again. It's like, oh man, I remember all of this. I remember, and it's kind of eerie, because now we're far enough away removed that I guess looking back on it, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. It's all I know how to say about it. But I thought you got some really good performances in here. You had a phenomenal cast in here, and it was an Ari Aster movie that I overall enjoyed. And when I was watching, I was like, am I liking this? But it's one of those that once it finishes, it sticks with you, to the point that I went back and rewatched it a second time, and I thought it was even better on a second watch. And that's how it got into my top 10 here. It's still behind Midsommar and Hereditary for me, for Ari Aster, but I put it above Beau's Afraid, and I'm still looking for what Ari Aster does next. At number 8, we'd have The Monkey here. Osgood Perkins, super excited about, him and his future. He's put out a lot of good stuff already. And this was a little bit different for him, because it is horror, but it's almost tongue-in-cheek horror. And I think it's one of the most fun theater experiences I had of the year, just because how absurd it gets with the kills, to where, people were cracking up, the level of blood that they did just to, almost a comedic effect. You certainly get carnage candy in this one, and I had a really good time with The Monkey. So it's honorable mention. It would be number 8. And then at number 7, Companion. I didn't get to watch this one till it came out on HBO Max, but it was one of them, when I seen it on Max, I was like, I wish I'd saw this in the theater. I thought for sure it'd end up in my top 5, but just missing out. But a great performance by Sophie Thatcher, and a really cool story that I thoroughly enjoyed, especially, the twist in this one I thought was well done, even though kind of figured out at some points. And then just missing out on the top 5 here, rounding out the honorable mentions, it would be number 6, Fantastic Four: First Steps. I know some people didn't enjoy this. Some people thought it was phenomenal. I kind of fall somewhere in between. I thought there were really good parts of it. I liked the kind of period piece setting. I liked a lot of the cast. I'll take or leave Pedro Pascal. I think it's just because we're getting burned out on him. It's been fed to us too much. I thought Galactus was just kind of, that's what brought it down for me. Was Galactus looked awesome and seemed like such a big threat, but they just kind of nerfed him a little bit, it seemed like to me, in the plot. So maybe we'll get more full blown Galactus that's not so easily defeated in the future. I don't know, but nonetheless, still a movie that I really enjoyed this year. Just missing out on my top 5. With that being said, let's get into the top 5. All right, starting off at number 5 here, it's Thunderbolts, or I guess the New Avengers, whichever you want to call it. I'd never seen a movie do that. This was out for a week, and I was wondering when it came out, why does it have the asterisk? Because you see there on the poster, Thunderbolts asterisk. And then that's after a week of releasing, it was like they peeled that off, and then it said the New Avengers at theaters and stuff like that. And you would look it up online, and it was titled the New Avengers. So I don't know if you're supposed to call this Thunderbolts or the New Avengers. I'm still going to call it Thunderbolts. But what I love about this movie is the way that it tackled really serious subjects within a superhero movie. And I know people are talking about superhero fatigue a lot, and I think this is one way you avoid that, is that yes, you can still have your superhero story, you can still have your heroic moments, you can still do all of that, but you can also tie in real life themes that are powerful and that have meaning and all of that. And I think this movie gives you that, gives you some really funny moments as well. I think Red Guardian, David Harbour, provides a lot of those, but I'm just a huge fan of Yelena. Her character, man, I think is an awesome character. Can't wait to see more of her in the MCU. So I enjoyed Thunderbolts. I thought it was super well done, and the MCU needed a couple of good movies. I think they had a couple of good ones, and to me, Thunderbolts was the best of the year. I wouldn't have thought that going in, going up against Fantastic Four and stuff, but I really enjoyed Thunderbolts, and it gets into my top 5. And then at number 4, one that I just recently watched and reviewed on the channel. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. If you want to hear the full spoiler review, I'll try and tiptoe around the spoilers as much as possible here. But Silent Deadly Night, man, I think that this was an awesome remake for this franchise. A good foot in the door. If you've never seen Silent Night Deadly Night, you can watch this one and kind of learn the story, no problem. It also does some things a little bit differently, but at the same time, if you were a fan of the original Silent Night Deadly Night movies, there's plenty of Easter eggs here for you as well. So I think it pleases both crowds, which is awesome, and it has franchise potential. I would love to see them continue this, drop one every December, every other December, something like that, and have 2 or 3 of these come out would be awesome. But I'm also a sucker for Christmas horror, especially Christmas slasher movies. But I think that, to not give away any spoilers, I'll just say this is my favorite movie in the Silent Night Deadly Night franchise. Shout out to Mike P. Nelson. Did an awesome job with this one. My number 4 of 2025. And into the top 3, at number 3, it's Weapons. One that I think we all probably had circled after, Barbarian was such a surprise hit that kind of no one saw coming. And because of the way Barbarian worked, with no one knowing anything about it and the trailer not giving anything away, and really until you watch the movie, you're like, what the fuck? Like, that's literally a movie that has true what the fuck moments, especially the main turn, I'm talking about in Barbarian. And because of that, they marketed Weapons the same way. And I think that benefited going in blind to where you really didn't know what you were going into. They'll just give away the kids leaving in the morning and stuff, as all the trailers gave away essentially. But I do think that it didn't have as big of a twist as Barbarian. This one was a little bit more predictable. It was a little bit more straightforward. But what I absolutely loved about Weapons is I love movies that do that thing where they kind of show different characters, and sometimes they are showing similar scenes, but you're seeing it from a different perspective. And when you see it from another character's perspective, it really reveals something to you that you didn't realize before. And Weapons does that a ton, so you do still get some little twists in there. But I think for me, this one had some more comedic moments than I was expecting. The crackhead character, his name's slipping my mind right now, and the police officer, their dynamic was hilarious. They stole the show for sure. And of course, Gladys. You're not going to come out of this not seeing Gladys in your nightmares. But I thought overall, Weapons just really well done. Was it as surprising of a twist as I'd hoped. No, but man, it a hell of a fun time though. Really enjoyed Weapons. Good suspense, some decent scares at times, but overall you're just gonna have a good time with this one. Weapons, phenomenal. Into the top two, and man, I went back and forth on these two all year. My number two was my number one most of the year, and then I just kept watching what ended up was my number one movie over and over till I think I was like, there's no way this can't be my number one as much as I've watched it. So it ended up this way, and that is number two for me is Sinners. I thought it was going to be my number one film from the moment I saw it. It was for a good majority of the year. It easily could be considered one of my favorite movies of the year. These are very much probably 1A and 1B, but got to rank them. So at number two, it's Sinners, my favorite Ryan Coogler film. Michael B. Jordan, just a phenomenal performance as two different characters to the point where you forget that this is one actor playing two people. That's literally, I mean, how good it is. Great performances all throughout the film by many of the actors. I think Haley Stanfield was a standout for me, for sure. The young actor, Miles Catron, is probably going to win some awards. Hard to believe that was his very first role. And just the way that this is almost, because to me, like going in, the comparison I was thinking about was From Dusk Till Dawn, and it very much does have those vibes. But this might be, I might like this better than From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know. That's tough. That's a tough call between the two. But I think this, you get those similar aspects to where the front portion of the movie is a movie you enjoy, and then the second half of the movie turns more horrific and you enjoy that as well. So you still get that aspect. You still do get some laughs in here too. But I think it touches on some real themes and some real shit in society, man. I don't know how else to put it other than that. And, being married to a black woman and seeing it with her and her, explaining some stuff to me and then watching it multiple times and seeing it through a different lens then also made me like it even more and understand it even further. And then it really sits with you from that aspect as well. So I think that to me, Sinners is just phenomenally done on so many levels. I mean, you can enjoy it for the laughs, you can enjoy it for the horror, you can enjoy it for the performances, you can enjoy it for the themes. If you're a fan of music, which my wife is also a musician, you're absolutely going to love it. The movie has such like a rhythm to it itself, and then of course the tribute that it does to music in a part of the movie is really awesome. Sinners to me is one that I'll rewatch a lot probably, and not as much as I rewatched my top movie. I think that's why my top movie became my top movie. But if you asked me what the best movie of the year was, I would probably say Sinners, although it ended up not being my favorite. It's right there and super well made, and I think it's going to clean up at the Oscars as it should. Which then brings us to my number one movie of the year. Can you guess it? I bet you can. It's Superman, man. I've probably seen this 7 or 8 times by now, which is crazy. And I think, that I've talked about in my TV show ranking, which if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. That this is one of the first years that I can remember that I watched more TV shows than I did movies. And to be quite honest, one reason that was after Superman came out, I would be sitting down like, should I watch something new, put a new movie on the list, a 2025 movie to add. And then I would be like, or I could watch Superman again. And, the majority of the time I would land on watching Superman again. And this one just really stuck with me. It was also the first time I ever went and watched a movie in 4K. And that was absolutely phenomenal. I loved a lot of the shots there. I loved the cast. I think David Cornsweet was awesome. Nicholas Hoult, who I've been a Nicholas Hoult hater for a long time, even sold me. He's right below Michael Rosenbaum for me in terms of Lex Luthor. Betsy Tulloch as Lois Lane was awesome. She fits the character so great. She's probably top 2 or 3 for me. And I think, you heard David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult talk about being Smallville fans. And I think that this movie to me really hits because, I'm a huge Smallville fan. And I think you could see, David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult being, like a future version of Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling's characters almost. And I think James Gunn just crafted not only a brilliant start to the DCU that opens up a lot of ways. They did a lot of world building in this without it feeling like too much was stuffed in there, but he also just really got the character right, in my opinion. And you get kind of a blend of like a Christopher Reeve-esque version with a modern twist and a modern take. So to me, this is like the perfect blend between a Man of Steel and a Christopher Reeve Superman. This is like that happy medium that I think I'd been looking for. I don't know if I can say it's my favorite Superman film of all time, just because Man of Steel is what made me fall in love with the character originally. So it'd be tough toss up between those two, but man, I've watched this a lot. I'll continue to watch this a lot. There's multiple moments in this that make me tear up. The moment between Clark and Jonathan, and I think that decision to have Jonathan Kent still around paid off because of some of those scenes were absolutely phenomenal. I might get choked up talking about them here on this review. They were well done. And then, of course, the kindness is punk rock. When he talks about being punk rock, and she says, you think everything is beautiful and everything like that. And he says, maybe that's the real punk rock. Like, that one gets me every time. So many moments here, just little lines of dialogue that really, I think, defined this character. You could see his passion come through as Superman. He felt like Superman. He was saving squirrels during the big fight scene. He cared about everyone and everything, and just, it's what you want to see out of a Superman movie, I think. Great blend of comedy, and it toes the line, with James Gunn, who has done rated R stuff and, came from Troma and has those comedic moments and stuff, and does go dark at times, even with what Lex does. So I could go on and on about this movie. I won't try and wax poetic about it too much, but I think it's a phenomenal start for the DCU. I think James Gunn did a hell of a job writing and directing this. I think it was pretty much great performances all around. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not a 10 out of 10 to me, but it's pretty damn close. I hope there's some things with the CGI that maybe they can clean up in some future DCU projects. But it's got me super excited for Supergirl. I mean, you guys saw it was one of my most anticipated of 2026, and I think the DCU is in great hands. So hopefully that continues, and I hope and can't wait to see more from David Cornsweet, Nicholas Hoult. We're getting Brainiac in the sequel to this. We know we're getting, it titled Man of Tomorrow. So I think that's going to be phenomenal. But for me, it's the film I rewatched the most and went back to the most. So it was definitely my favorite movie of the year. Am I biased being as big of a Superman fan as I am? Of course I am. But just so well done. My number one movie of 2025 is Superman. So there you have it. My top 5 of 2025. I mean, technically my top 10, since I threw in my 5 honorable mentions there. I mean, some others that missed the cut that I did enjoy were like Hard Eyes, Friendship. I thought Clown in a Cornfield was underrated. But that's just a couple there if I want to throw in a couple more honorable mentions. But like I said, there's a ton of movies that I wanted to see that I haven't gotten a chance to watch yet. I'm sure they're on some of your all's lists. So, throw it in the comments, anything you got there. If it's thoughts on my list, if it's your list or a movie that you really enjoyed that you want to drop in and tell me about that I need to check out, throw it in the comments there. Always enjoy talking movies with you guys, and be sure and subscribe so we can talk more movies in the future as I try and watch more in 2026 and bring you more reviews here on the channel as well. Having said that, I appreciate you tuning into this one, and I will catch you on the next one.